Kasia, excellent. Thank you so much. And welcome everybody to this. Well, it's a sort of hybrid thing. We've never done a webinar with all the crew involved before, so that's a real thrill. I'm still finding out which way to point myself. In the build up to this event, we went out and bought all kinds of amazing broadcast equipment, which sadly didn't work. So our engineer Andy did his best, but there's stuff that's gone missing and in transit and so on and so forth. So anyway, I'm delighted to see you all and have some wonderful colleagues who have been working really hard on putting these three workshops together. The first of which is, of course, on coaching. More about that from Nigel in a minute. And maybe, are we going to have everybody else on screen just to say hi to start with, or are we just going to get cracking, Nigel?
We're going to have everyone on screen to say hello first.
Lovely.
So, hi everyone. I'm Nigel. Good morning.
Hello, I'm Natalie.
Morning, I'm Rachel.
And Diane. There we go. Cool. Lovely. All right. So I'm going to switch my camera off, and I'm just going to say a couple of words about what I think coaching is, and then I'm going to hand straight over to Nigel, who's leading this session. So for me, the thing that is most important for me in coaching and why we included it as a topic this morning is that coaching is just a conversation. You don't have to be a professional coach to do that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is as I put on the screen, the graphic that I used is chosen on purpose. It's about not getting in the boat with the person. It's about an advice-free conversation for them to be able to stay in charge of the boat and their own lives. And the last thing I'll say before I hand over to Nigel is also that it is the most respectful to the other person's expertise about themselves. And if there's a mistake that many coaches make, which I know Nigel worked this morning, is to imagine that we've got something to say about somebody else's life or circumstances that they couldn't have figured out by themselves. So those are some of the things that I think coaching is and isn't. And Nigel, it's over to you now. And I'm going to switch off for now.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, brilliant. So Rachel has kindly volunteered or been volunteered to be coached by me this morning. So what I'd like you all to do is just observe, notice, feel free to put your comments and feedback in the Q&A pane, and see if you can notice what steps we're going through. So Rachel, what's on your mind?
Well, ever since I was asked to do this, I've been thinking about what's been going on for me, and I think in the circumstances that have happened recently with the social isolation and everybody in lockdown, I'm really struggling with feeling connected to people. So I've worked from home for just over a year now, and I don't mind that. I'm quite happy to work from home, and having a home office and those sorts of things is fine. But I interspersed it with going out and seeing people, meeting up with people, whether that was through work or socially, and then to have all of that taken so abruptly, it was. I didn't think it would matter that much because, when you work from home, you work for yourself, and so kind of felt independent and stuff. But then having those things to look forward to and having that personal time, it's been difficult, and I think I'm struggling with that at the moment.
Right. It sounds like you're quite surprised about how much of a change you've had to make.
Yeah, I think so. I have been able to speak to one of my friends this week via video call, who normally works in an office with other people, and so she was going, of course, you're used to working from home, so you know what it's like. And I was like, well, I do know what it's like, but I've stolen a march on everybody in that sense. So I'm set up. I know how I've got my own home office, but. I was really surprised. I have been really surprised by the having those things taken away. So I was meant to be going to a couple of meetings with yourselves, and then a couple of other things as well, like I can't think of the word now. I really can't think of the word. Like an exposition, but those sorts of things. Even though I wasn't meant to be seeing anybody in particular, I was just going to be going around some stalls and things. I was quite looking forward to the experience, and having those things not in the diary anymore, and I don't know when the next time is I'll be seeing somebody again. It's quite in person. It's quite difficult.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really disconcerting for you, because you, on one intellectual level, you were thinking almost this might or should be a doddle because I'm used to working from home, but these other factors have really made it hit home for you that it's something quite different.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. It's given me a new appreciation for having those things in the diary, when hope I'm sure we will get back to normal, and we'll all be allowed to see one another again at some point. To really go for those things and make sure that they're in the diary. And whilst I always did, it's looking forward to them even more, and maybe having a newfound, deeper appreciation of it once it's there.
So you're well, I'm a bit thrown actually, because I'm surprised, because you're usually you are very composed and together, and you are today, but I'm surprised at how much it seems to have thrown you.
So am I. So am I. Yeah, it has really thrown me. So I think if perhaps I hadn't had anything for a couple of weeks, and of just working from home anyway, and didn't have anything planned, maybe I would have already have been in the zone of, well, it doesn't matter too much, and kind of had it almost planned in by accident. But yeah, having all of these things go, and hearing from everybody else that I'm speaking to about these things, that everybody else is really struggling with it as well. It's given me a new appreciation, as I say, about the importance of staying in contact with people in person.
Right.
And I am quite struggling with I think it's more as well, it's the kind of the unknown of not knowing when things will go back to normal, that I'm struggling with that.
Right. So, struggling in the sense that it's starting to become starting to be a worry for you, it sounds.
No, not a worry. I wouldn't say a worry. I'm not really sure what it is. I'm not worried about it. No, I'm not. I can't ascribe a feeling to it, I'm afraid. But no, it isn't. It doesn't worry me.
Right. It's good to hear. I'm relieved to hear that for you. There's you were saying a moment ago that there's a lot of unknowns. A lot of unknowns in terms of getting used to the new way of doing things, and being surprised about things not going ahead, and not having stuff to look forward to. But it almost sounds like you hit on something there, because you started talking about looking forward to when things get back to normal. Tell me more about that.
I am. I'm just looking forward to. I just quite look. Before all of this happened, I did quite look forward to having things in the diary where it would be like a break from going out, from staying in, sorry, and just working from home. I think in hindsight, I didn't appreciate how much at the time that I actually really enjoyed just having a day to get on the train and come down to London and do these bits and pieces, and having a break from it all. So I think in a way I'm maybe I don't know, maybe sad at the disruption to it all. It's I understand, obviously I understand why, and it's all for necessary means, and it's all for best, and I'm sure everything will get back to normal soon, hopefully. But yeah, it's I quite enjoyed my little adventures out, I suppose.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's I'm finding that quite hard, and I think feeling like I said earlier, the wanting to be with, and yeah, wanting to be with people in a physical room, and just being able to just spend that time and having that social, the social bits and pieces that come with just being with people. It's yeah, it's finding it quite hard.
Yeah, I mean, as you're talking to sort of get it out of my head, you're reminding me of how guilty almost I've felt at times for feeling like I'm missing out on stuff when there's actually bigger stuff that people are dealing with.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not really sure what to say to that.
Well, that was something I wanted to sort of get out of my head, so it didn't get in the way of what we were saying. So you're at this stage where you're perplexed, really, about what's going on and what's next, and because you like your little adventures, there's frustration of not being able to put them into place because we don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think I'm somebody that likes having a plan. I like to have things in place in the as I say, in the diary, and it's it's just it's really thrown me, all of this, and yeah, I think I had thought that maybe it wouldn't have affected me quite as much because of the way in which I've worked in the past, and it's really not getting to me. It's just it's really I don't even know what to say really. It's just I think what you just said really struck a chord with me because there are a lot of people out there that are working really hard and things already, and so I don't want to take away from that at all. But it's I don't know. It's just it's one. I'm trying my hardest to go with the flow, but I think I'm just missing spending time with people, especially because it's things like I don't necessarily spend an awful lot of time with, say for example, friends, because we all live across the country, and so we maybe only see one another every 3 or 4 months. Meant to be seeing people in these past couple of weeks that I haven't seen since sort of September-ish time, and then to have those things not there anymore, I don't want to see them because of what's going on, but it's a real shame, I think, and that makes me I think just a bit upset about how that such a seemingly small thing of just something to look forward to is just not. It's just gone really, and it's until such a time in the future, but who knows when that'll be. I think it's the uncertainty of everything that's causing a lot of disruption, I suppose, for me.
So it's quite sad to recognise that you're missing out on those little things that you were taking for granted.
Yeah, I do think when all this is over, it'll give me a new appreciation of things. Yeah, that I always looked forward to those things anyway, but I think I'll look forward to them with a renewed enthusiasm and vigour.
Now, you mentioned a few times there when this is over and how you like to have things to look forward to. It sounds like you're onto something there.
I think it seems to me that I know that it will be over at some point. Maybe I'm trying in my head to plan when that would be, and it would be great if I could go, right, okay, everybody, it's all going to finish on this day, and we'll all be okay. But I can't do that, unfortunately. And so I think that's the thing that's missing for me, is that sort of gap in the knowing part of things, knowing when it's going to be knowing when it's going to be okay, again, and knowing when it's going to be safe, and then being able to start planning and looking forward to things, and I'm looking forward to that day, but I would like to have a little bit more certainty around that when it would be, but
right,
that's one thing that you can't do.
So, well, what you're saying is that you're wary of planning anything at all, because it just feels like it would be daft to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, I'm surprised, because I wonder whether there is anything that could be planned. No, put it in a different way. I'm thinking that there must be stuff that I can plan. So I'm surprised to hear you say that you don't think there's anything that you could plan.
I think I just maybe want to make sure it's safe. I don't maybe want to get my hopes up, and then get to look forward to it, and then it not be, we get to that point and it's still not okay. So I think maybe I'm just trying to temper my expectations.
Right. Okay. So yeah, you don't want to get ahead of yourself. All right to leave it there, Rachel?
Yeah, sure.
Right, leave it there for now. Thank you very much. Being there. Oh, and Diane, without me needing to cue in. So you briefly met Diane earlier. Diane's going to help us debrief the session there. Diane, over to you.
Right, Nigel. One of the things that really struck me was the amount of time you were giving Rachel to speak through what was going on for her without sort of interruption. Is that your normal approach?
Yes, yeah, to try and give as much time as possible for the other person to air their thoughts, to crystallize, to put into words what's going on inside their head. It's also for me to actually find out, and to try not to make any assumptions about what I think is about to be said, or what I think is going on.
Yeah, and you often use the phrase, and picking up what Rachel was saying, it sounds like, which struck me as giving Rachel an opportunity to clarify, or you to empathise with what she was saying. Again, I would see it as part of that process that you're going through.
Yeah, I think with this one, I find it toughest to empathise when I can really relate to someone and when I really like them, like with Rachel. In a way, it's easier to listen to it. I find easier to listen and empathise with someone that you don't have a connection with, because you're not tempted to sympathise. You're not tempted to try and put a virtual arm around them and stuff like that, or you're not tempted to give advice and so on. So I was working quite hard at trying to make sure that I was giving Rachel the opportunity to say what was really going on for her.
Yes, and it was felt as if it was a process of that little bit more digging under each time, by saying it sounds like, and almost sort of repeating, allowing Rachel to repeat what she was saying. And I watched Rachel, you exploring in your own head some of that thinking, and so it felt like it was going a little bit deeper. And I wondered for you, Rachel, having that space was useful.
Yeah, it's only really been in the past couple of days that, when I've been really focusing on what I wanted to bring to today and share, that that was really what had come out for me, and so I was still trying to sit with it for myself and understand it for myself, but it was really nice to be able to speak to somebody and share it and try and work out what was going on, really.
Good. I mean, we're for people watching, so I'm just going to say, Dan, that people watching, we're very much up for having real and open conversations. So in that spirit, Rachel, you tell me what was working for you there.
Being given the space to explore a little bit more what was going on for me. As I say, it was still quite new to me. It was almost like when I was trying to come up with what it was that I was going to come to with today. This little light bulb came on of going, I'm just really missing people, and I'm missing having a connection with people in a sort of in-person sense, and trying to understand why, and being really surprised. I was really surprised by that, and so it was really nice to be able to talk it through. And when you were asking me about what I was feeling, so when you said it seems that you're worried, I was thinking I'm not worried. I don't know what I am yet, but I'm not worried about it. I think there's something else that's going on for me there, and so it was good to go, right, it's okay, it's not worry.
Yeah.
Let's pick from any of the other ones, any of the other many emotions that could happen, could be going on.
Yeah, good.
Nigel, question for you, Nigel. I just wondered how tempting it is at times, or not, for you to, especially when you know somebody maybe, but for you to want to offer any sort of advice or possible solutions, because you didn't do that. And it's a genuine question. I think people are often tempted to do that. What's going on at that point for you?
Trying to keep it clean about where the focus of attention is. So, for example, you may remember 2/3 of the way through, I said to Rachel that she triggered a thought in me about the guilt of feeling like you're missing out on stuff when other people are dealing with more serious situations. And I wasn't there trying to suggest to Rachel that that's what she was saying, but I needed to get it out of the way so that I then wasn't going to be tempted to explore that as a topic.
Gotcha. No, that's really helpful actually, and I think you made that clear to Rachel as well. That's how it came across.
Rachel, sorry, Diane. Is this a good moment, Nigel, to put the steps on the screen so that people can start to see that what you were doing was very much on purpose?
Great. Yeah, I think we're good with that.
Okay, we'll do that. And then I noticed just from our times that we're almost ready to move on to the next bit. But Diane, I don't want to cut across you, so I'm going to put the steps up, and then maybe you decide whether it's still what your question is still pertinent. But go ahead with it anyway.
I think we've got a
just
couple
the final thing was how I noticed you use replaying to Rachel what she'd already said. I'm looking at, you were starting to explore the looking forward, but you weren't suggesting it. Rachel had said it, and you took her back to that. And it's something I just noticed you doing.
Well, I'd be interested to hear what Rachel thought about that actually, and I've got a thought on it. But Rachel, how do you feel about that part?
I think I am just looking forward to the future, and so I'm not sure actually. I suppose it's quite difficult to really reflect on it when you're the coachee, when you're really thinking about what's going on for you. I don't know actually. No, I'm really sorry, I can't think.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, it sounded like you were starting to identify a couple of things. That's what it seemed, which is why I wanted to pick up on them. But where I got to was that it seems like it's one of those situations where there isn't a next step solution. The outcome, perhaps, especially in the time limit of of a webinar is simply to get to a better sense of clarity, to have moved your thinking forward, as opposed to, right, tomorrow I'm going to, organise something.
Can I butt in here? The couple of comments have come in to Nigel, Diane, and Rachel. Debbie says I liked the use of decoding in inverted commas Rachel's words, e.g., what struggle looked like for her. And Shivani says Rachel was very open in sharing how she's feeling. Sometimes people aren't so open and are less expressive and less likely to elaborate. What tips do you have for this type of quote unquote client, please, Nigel?
So someone who isn't as articulate at expressing their
Well,
emotions.
isn't as open, maybe isn't as up for sharing feelings, isn't as used to exploring as Rachel is. That's what I'm reading into Shivani's question.
I think that actually, because if someone is finding it tougher, it can be not just because they're not used to it, but because they are experiencing that emotion. And when someone's in the middle of experiencing an emotion, that makes it tougher to think straight. So actually, when you put those two things together, it means that the burden is on the coach to help them get to that place where they can articulate it. They're
I think
not
what
in
you
place
do,
to do so.
sorry, Nigel, to cut across you. There's something particularly that you do, Nigel, that I don't, and in fact, I sat as I was watching you, and you and I, Nigel, have been working together for quite many years now, and I think, oh, come on, Nigel, get on with it, and so that's me. But there were a couple of times it wasn't so much get on with it today, but it was, gosh, I wonder where this is going, and oh, he's taking her back on something. And then, oh my goodness, I thought that really works. So what really works that I see Nigel doing is that there is absolutely no rush. I would even put the word meandering. And it is slow, sometimes painfully slow for me as the observer, not as the coachee, by the way, that I think, gosh, this is going nowhere. And then it does. And it happened at least twice with Rachel. You did things and more slowly than I wouldn't have, and I might have rushed past what Rachel was grappling with. So that I think might be one answer to Shivani's question. It's really, really take your time. Be as patient as Nigel.
I concur about taking the time. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think too, the use of silence is really important. And especially when I've worked with people who are perhaps more have a preference for sort of introversion, that's so much more important, because I'm just waiting and allowing them to process something before they're perhaps then willing to share it. So giving time. I love your word, Paul, meandering. I shall use that, Nigel, with you.
So we're 10:30, and maybe it's time now to switch away from Rachel and for one of the attendees, one of the participants today, to maybe have a go at coaching you, Nigel.
Yes, let's do it. I think we had some people who said they'd be up for that. So
Nicola's going to select somebody, I believe. And let's see if they're still up for it, and we'll switch their camera on for us. Obviously, when you're coming forward to do a piece of work with us, which we're very grateful for, because it's you who are coming on this webinar that really make it, then you are going to need to enable your own camera. And I think somehow Nicola will find a way of telling you that you're the one who's been selected.
If I could ask anybody to put their hand up, please, if they'd like to be selected. If you could put your hand up, and I will randomly select somebody and send you an invite, please.
So all is to spend 10 minutes coaching me, just as we did before, using the steps that you can see on the screen there. Just having a go, having a practice at lots of listening.
Whilst someone's busy volunteering, I think we've got someone hand up. But I just wanted, is it worth my while just saying a couple of words about each of the steps, Nigel? Or would you like to?
No, go for it, Paul.
Okay, so the spot we tried to boil it down to its absolute most concentrated form, because this whole webinar is about coaching for people who don't normally consider themselves as coaches or might not even really believe in it as a thing. So the way we boiled it down to, spot the cloud, listen out, and spot the sunbeam. And spotting the cloud is, in these particular times where your people are working remotely, is just to hear that tone of voice, that delay, that something that says something's not quite right there. It may be that the person comes and volunteers that particular cloud to you, and that's great. And in which case it's just, tell me about it. I'm listening. Step 2, the listening out, is by far the most recurrent, and I think, as Nigel has demonstrated this morning, the most fundamental part of coaching, whatever that is. Oh, we've got Hazel. Hooray, Hazel. Fantastic. Hazel, you look as though you're one of these police programs where the witness is being made anonymous. Could you do us a favor and draw the curtains behind you? And then we'll be able to see your face as well. I'm not sure Hazel heard me. Are you there, Hazel?
It looks like she might be.
You might have some bandwidth problems. So I'll carry on with my explanation until we can hear Hazel.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, indeed. Hazel,
sorry, I had to redial back in. Hello.
Thank you for taking the trouble. Hazel, can you just draw the curtains behind you so that we can see your face? You look as though, this.
Just bear me a sec.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, have I made it worse? No, that's good. There we go. Oh, we can see more. Oh, wonderful. So, Hazel, if you just hang on for 2 secs, and if you hang on for 2 secs, Hazel, I'm just going to explain the last couple of steps. So, this listening business is being as patient as you can bring yourself to be, but this whole thing of use your ears and don't jump into the boat is really important. And then the spotting the sunbeam. In Nigel's case, it was really subtle. He really had to take his time and stay out of the way, stay out of the boat in order to be able to spot that actually Rachel had hinted at a solution to herself. It was something to do with planning. It was something to do with maybe you could have something in the diary or something like that. So spot the cloud, listen out, and spot the sunbeam, and just have fun with it. So Hazel, I'm going to be quiet now, and Nigel is going to give you something to work on. And by the way, for anybody who's joined us this morning, and there are many of you, so thank you so much for joining. All of the stuff we're working on is live. We've rehearsed a lot of the structure, but we're not making this stuff up. So Rachel's thing was real. What Nigel's going to give Hazel to work on is absolutely real. And the other 2 sessions today, we really, really are not coming in with set pieces. So I'm going to withdraw and leave you both to it.
Cool. Over to you, Hazel. Hi.
Hi, Nigel. Nice to meet you. And I just want to really ask you what's on your mind right now?
The big thing at the moment is postponing my wedding.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. So it needs to be postponed. We were getting married beginning of June, and obviously it's a moving thing with lots of different factors coming into play. The main decision at the moment is between postponing to the end of the summer or beginning of September, or whether to put it off until next year.
My goodness me. Well, I just want to say, really feel for you both in that situation. I've got a lot of friends in a similar situation as well, so don't underestimate how much that is concerning you currently. So you're saying that you're thinking of 2 decisions really in your mind at the moment. Where does your partner feel that she wants to go with this, or he wants to go with this currently?
Yeah, it is a he, actually. Well, we're both torn. I mean, I think we're very much on the same page. Most things that this too. We because the wedding was so close, the conclusion I got to so far is that the heart is saying, let's try and get married this year, and that's what we both like to do. Yeah. I think the head for me at least, is saying, well, it would be more practical. We can sort of, if you like, rest easy to postpone until next year, because what if we go for September and then end up having to reschedule anyway, or we have people still worried about stuff and that being part of the atmosphere. Steph is he likes to get things done. You know, he's very a doer, and maybe even a little bit impulsive. I think you'd probably agree with that. So I think he's probably leaning slightly more towards trying to get married this year. But we're both going backwards and forwards. It's and this is the thing. It's I don't think there is a perfect answer.
No, possibly not. But how do you feel about the prospect of getting married this year, if that was the way you were to go?
Well, like I say, the as far as the heart goes, that it feel I quite, you know, I like the idea. I feel I'm not sure if I'm excited about it, because there is that dampening of the excitement. Well, you know, the what if, and could I really get excited before July or August, when things were looking a bit more certain that it was going to happen? So that's part of it, and it's weird because with a wedding, normally, if I was chatting to a friend, for example, say, well, the heart decides it. You know, you just got to make it happen. But it just feels a very different situation. So I'm very, very torn between, whether it's sensible to be practical. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, and I really understand the conflict that you're going through there. You're saying you're feeling torn. So how would you feel if you were on the other scenario where you were looking to get married next year?
In a way, I could. In a way, I could breathe a sigh of relief. I would be disappointed. I think it's that thing of where we're so close and looking forward to getting married in a matter of weeks. To be back to it being over a year, it's difficult. I'm generally generally take a positive outlook. And, you know, one example is that, you know, we've got most of it planned now. There'd be, you know, it would be excuse the pun, icing on the cake now. Anything extra we added to the planning. But I'm genuinely torn. I suppose, actually, thinking about it, the other important element is, I'm more worried, I think, about kicking myself about going for next year, having done with it, knowing where we stand, and then at some point, hopefully in the near future, I mean, hopefully it would be a good outcome if things change drastically, or if September could have been viable. But I think I really would kick myself that we postponed that long unnecessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm sensing from you is a real inner conflict, and I understand where your partner's going through exactly the same thing currently, as to either you go for the September choice, but you're kind of thinking that may be a bit of a dampener in terms of not sure where you are currently, in terms of will that really be able to go ahead, or but it's your heart choice, that's what you want to do, or your next year choice of, okay, well, your head says that's a sensible thing to do, but equally what I'm hearing is that if things move drastically and radically, you could have got married this year, that is saying you kick yourself. So I think in terms of what I'd like to explore with you is what other options do you think you have in terms of making that decision? So does it have to, so I'm not going to ask that, just what other options do you think you have?
I suppose that's part of the difficulty, because it doesn't seem like there are many, well, you know, if we were going to brainstorm, just give up on getting married. potentially get married, just the two of us, and then do celebration later. But even that, at the moment, the registrar isn't doing even small ceremonies. So I don't know. I think because a decision needs to be made before the dates are snapped up by other people. You know, we've got to the point where it is down to these two as the best possible options of what we could do. So it's really just trying to I was talking about this head and the heart thing. I suppose I'm torn between whether it is a head or a heart decision, which one I should listen to. That, you know, that confusion.
Yeah, no, and that's totally understandable in the situation that you're in. And the reality is, whatever decision you make with your partner will be the right decision, because it's a decision you need to make with yourselves based on the information that you have. So in terms of when do you need to make this decision, would you feel at the moment, in terms of whether you decide it's going to be this year or next year?
Probably by the end of today, so that the
my gosh,
go. Yeah,
that's really quick. So what do you have in place to talk with your partner currently about that?
Well, probably grabbing a cup of tea after this and pulling him to one side and saying, look, we need to decide something. So yeah, just talking it over, because as with you, it's the genuinely the expressing the thoughts that are going around in the head that bit by bit helps to crystallize things, even if the solution itself isn't, to be honest, right this minute, absolutely obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would the advantages of going ahead this year then, going for a date this year?
Well, actually, Hazel, I wonder if I may suggest that we pause it there.
Sure,
absolutely. Okay?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too.
Great conversation. Thank
you. Yeah. No, thank you very much. Yeah, you got me to a good point there. Diane's going to debrief us again. Diane.
Yeah. First of all, Hazel, thank you. Superstar for volunteering. Don't know how it.
No worries.
How did it feel?
I mean, I'm used to coaching, but used to using a different approach to coaching. Used to using Tigro. That's the model I usually use. But it's just nice to sort of have a very basic kind of spot the cloud, listening, and trying to look for the light. So I enjoyed that structure.
I noticed that, especially more towards the beginning, you were staying with feelings. But then I noticed there was perhaps just a tendency to, you're very practical, which is probably, given what Nigel said about his decision, it's probably maybe helpful at the moment. And I wondered whether, thinking about that, we feel about trying to stay more in that exploration of feelings. Does it resonate with what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, I'm probably more used to coaching in a work context, although I think you can have coaching conversations in any walk of life and in any family situation as well. But certainly I was mindful of time. I think that's probably where my mind was, in terms of the fact that we're in this environment, and not, if it just been myself and Nigel in a room somewhere, then probably would have explored more on the feeling side of things. But mindful that perhaps we wanted to move more towards that sunbeam and solution.
I noticed you definitely reflected back to him more than once, sort of that inner feelings.
Yeah.
Nigel, what about you?
Yeah. So I think that even in a short space of time like we had, we achieved. Well, you helped me a lot, and I agree that the feelings bit for me was the most important bit. And even in that 5 or 10 minutes where we were exploring what was going on for me internally, you helped inch me forward in what was going on for me inside. So this time factor again, that we've been talking about. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because it's giving enough time as a coach, allowing yourself to slow down and meander, perhaps, but that actually not taking a lot of time to do. And even in 5 or 10 minutes, you can help someone really get the clarity that might not mean that they come up with a practical next step, but that will be a foundation for it. And I think the practical steps that you were encouraging me to start thinking about were on the ball. They were an appropriate part of the conversation. But I wasn't quite ready to go there yet. So the bit. Yeah. Oh, I've frozen, Hazel. Are you still with us?
Yeah, no, I'm still with you.
You're still here. Great.
You're frozen, but I can still hear you absolutely fine, Nigel.
Cool.
I don't know if I'm frozen or not, but
you haven't, Dia. Yeah. So so that was all. It was just a little bit soon for me. That exploring more of the feelings actually would have been would have helped even more. Paul, hello. Welcome back.
Yeah, hi. So I just want to say that so we're spot on schedule. We've got a couple of other little tiny steps to fit in, but I wanted to say that Amy has asked a question, and I wanted to make sure it got answered. And unfortunately, didn't see the. Oh, here we go. So Amy asked a question. Is it okay to ask direct questions, or would more explorative language be better placed when coaching? So that's the first bit. So can you give us a sort of 20-word answer, Nigel?
Ask direct questions for clarification. If you haven't understood something, my preference is for exploratory questions if the focus is on helping the individual get to a better understanding of what's going on for them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So actually, Amy, you struck a chord with me, because my preference is definitely that if I can turn a question, my question is normally something I've already got the answer to, because it's there in front of me. So we often ask questions when the individual in front of us has actually already told us the answer. So, the most frequent one that is, how are you feeling? Well, it's bleeding obvious how the person's feeling. We've got eyes and ears, and we are extremely intuitive. So that's, I tend to really resist, and the crew will tell you, I have almost, I come out with in allergic reactions when questions are used, because I think, actually, I bet you know that already by powers of observation, by what you've picked up already. So that's my particularly extreme angle on questions. And then yes, so then Amy had something to suggest, which was, sorry, I didn't see you. I just wondered if using language like, you mentioned this, in fact, Nigel, you're very good at that. I liked what you said, in fact, Hazel, when you did reflect back. It seems to be an inner conflict, and I thought I beamed when you said that, Hazel, because I thought, yeah, that's totally about Nigel. And the other thing that Amy was suggesting was or reflection and repetition of what Nigel has said is a bit of a softer approach. I would be, yes, person after my own heart. I'd be inclined to ask as little actual questions as possible. Would that be right, Amy? That's in my book, but some people are very skillful with questions. I tend to shy away with you by the sound of it. I think that was the main part of the questions. Yeah, emergent ideas. Diane, Nigel, and Hazel, thank you so much again for volunteering. You're a total star.
Pleasure. Thank you, guys. Cheers. Thank you. And good luck with the wedding, Nigel.
Thank you.
I'm going to wait with bated breath to find out what you decide, although I have an inkling.
We'll keep you posted. Yeah.
Oh, Hazel, cool. Don't encourage him.
Cheers, guys. I'll just turn my webcam off. Thank you.
Thanks, Hazel. So yeah, emergent ideas. What's coming out for you both? We've done a couple of real practical sessions. The theory is one thing, spot the cloud, see what's going on, really listen out, and then spot the sunbeam. What's come out from this morning's practical for you both?
Well, I think one is picking up on Amy's point, because I had in mind this being in the zone of exploring and mixed up what Amy was saying there about whether direct questions or exploratory questions are best. I totally concur that actually making statements about what you see going on is the way to help the other person explore what's going on for them, and taking the time. And the time is time gets warped.
Okay.
You can actually get a lot done even if it feels like things are going slowly.
Yeah, good point. I think that the temptation to canter ahead just because we're running out of time is sometimes overwhelming, but staying steady like you did, Nigel, really helps. Diane, a thought from you, anything that jumped out as being of particular poignancy this morning?
I think for me it's about helping the other person by the silences, by the meandering, by the recognizing the feelings and exploring that, and then being able to pick up on what that person, the answer they may already have, but they haven't seen it. And you, Nigel, particularly in the first one, I think with Rachel, where you picked up on, and I know there wasn't time to explore it, it didn't matter, but going back and going, actually, you said so and so, let's explore that a little bit further. So often the answer lies within the person, but that needs, our role is to allow space for that to come out rather than trying to fix something.
Yeah. For me, I think the part of the waiting and the waiting it out and being prepared to listen actually means that when something does start to go right for the individual, when they do have that sunbeam really does appear, the signal for us to move on, I think, is often, if we are going slowly enough to see it, it's that it becomes really obvious when that person has had an idea. And if we've managed to stay out of the boat, it's really obvious that it's their idea. So they derive the pleasure, the satisfaction, the relief from having done it by themselves, to all intents and purposes. But then the most important thing is, of course, it's implementable because they came up with it. We didn't put something onto them, which might have seemed like a cracking solution, but actually probably wouldn't be implementable.
And then it's always my solution and not their solution.
Yeah, and it might just work, but my nervousness around giving particularly experienced coaches making suggestions, and I hear myself doing it and I kick myself, and I do it often, particularly when I know somebody well. I think it gives me the right, the license to say, well, actually, well, I've known you long enough, may I suggest? And you think, that's a real rookie's error. Nigel.
And I'm thinking about it, that was a theme in both our exercises there, that there wasn't a crystal clear solution that either Rachel or I got to. And sometimes what is enough in a coaching session is to simply help move the thinking forward.
Yeah.
And you don't have to get the other person to a solution. You don't have to give one.
Yes, and actually something you also made me think, Nigel, is that you might not, as the coach, formal or informal, you might not get the satisfaction in that 10 or 15 minutes or even half an hour of them saying, oh, I know what to do now. But sometimes they'll walk away and you'll think, oh, I'm not sure if that I really helped them, but I did my best. And actually they keep on noodling about it and they come up with something later. So you might not find out instantly how helpful you've been, but if you've managed to stay out of the way, you've given them the best possible chance, that you've given them that their boat a little push, and they can absolutely row it by themselves frequently.
Yeah, I agree. Cool.
Fantastic. Well, it's 5-2. Nigel, thank you so much for running that session. I'm just checking the Q&A pane to see if there's. Yeah, here we go. We do have some more questions from Vida, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Vida. Correct me if I haven't. Hi. At work, we often do not have lots of time to spend exploring the feelings bit, and sometimes the coachee also wants to hear some advice or solution. How can we deal with that? Both of you.
It can feel like it's going to take time, but it's a false economy, I find, to get down to business, to get down to the practical stuff, because if the emotion is there, it's only going to rear its head later and get in the way either of the implementation of whatever a solution is. If it's there, it needs to be dealt with. And as we've seen today, you can actually deal with, you can empathize with emotions in a very short period of time, actually. What was the second part of Vida's question?
It was about time and whether, and people say, I might turn around to Nigel or Diane if they're my coach or my boss and say, what do you think I should do? So that enticement to provide that solution, that quick fix, please just fix it for me because I need to go. I'm really worried.
So I would say it's being aware of what's going on, and as much as you're tempted to help and give advice for all the reasons we've been talking about, don't, because you'll get the blame if it doesn't work, etc. So say what's going on. For example, it might be you sound keen to get to a resolution for this really quickly, or you sound concerned that where your thinking is at the moment isn't fully formed enough, etc.
So what you're actually doing, Nigel, is you are empathizing not with the original feelings that they walked in with, but you're empathizing with the latest material, which is basically their new worry that they haven't got a solution to the problem that they came to see you for. That's pretty sneaky. You're keeping up with where they've gone.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Look, it's 10:59. As usual, we really like to end these things, no matter whether they're going well or badly. But today they're going well, on time. So what I'd like to say is a big thank you to Nigel for leading this session. You've put a lot of work into that in the prep and everything. Obviously, also a huge thank you to Rachel. Natalie was a standby in case we didn't have a volunteer. But so thank you so much to Hazel. Diane, of course, and our standby, Natalie, actually isn't very well and may have the dreaded. So, Natalie, lots of love and paracetamol coming your way, and take care of yourself.